So there's a very good chance this is my last book haul for a while, and it's pretty good. Not one of my best ever, but this is a pretty good collection. There's quite a few things in here that I was very happy to find, and let's just get right into them. Well, actually, first, let's talk about why I'm not going to have a book haul for a while. There are two major reasons. One, I've switched mostly to ebooks when it comes to reading with my eyes. I picked up a Kobo Libra Color not too long ago, and I think I might make a review of it. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to hear about that. The other reason this will be my last book haul for a while is because I don't know if any of you know this, but books cost money. And right now doesn't feel like a good time to be spending a lot of money on books. I know that sounds ludicrous, but I have a lot of books. I have a huge TBR. I do a lot of e-reading now and audiobooks. So when I buy books from here on out, they're going to really count. It's not going to be a big bulk buy. I say that as I look over at some of the books in here that I literally bought because I found them for $1 a piece. But anyways, let's get into what I picked up because it is pretty good. Not too long ago, I showed off a copy of Frankenstein that I picked up, a Penguin Classics, but it was from a library. It didn't have the library markings on it, but it had a naked hardcover, and I rarely see those because there are companies out there that take regular paperbacks and they make them more durable for libraries. They're not really something you buy as the general public, and they're very expensive. Well, I picked up Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis, The Penal Colony, and Other Stories from the I don't know where to put this book to show it off, from the Kafka library. And this one is a little naked hardcover in really good shape. My dog just freaked out because she thought I knocked on the door. She's tripping. Hey, calm down. You're fine. But this thing was a pretty cool pickup. And I have wanted to read The Metamorphosis for a long time. I'd never seen a reasonably priced copy, and then I picked this up for $1, so I was pretty hyped about that. One of the reasons I'm happy I picked up this copy is because it has some critiques in the back and some really interesting appendices. So when I dig into classic writers, I enjoy the critical analysis that you usually find in the back of them, like the Norton Critical Library stuff. I love those. I have a handful of Mark Twain stuff from that collection, so I thought it was a really cool find. Don't know why my library retired it, but I'm not going to complain. These next things I picked up, I didn't know they existed, so that made me incredibly happy. The first one being the collected edition of William Hope Hodgson by Nightshade Books. I know this is hard to see. Let me see if I can get it in frame. This collected fiction of William Hope Hodgson, there is a special edition version that I wanted to pick up, but then I found out that the font in it is unreadable. So I thought, maybe not. I didn't realize they put them out in traditional trade paperbacks. I also picked up volume 4, which I also got for a good price. I had no idea I could get these as trade paperbacks, and that just makes my life so much easier. I read The House on the Borderland like a couple weeks ago, and I had a good time with it. It's very trippy, very weird, and I really like William Hope Hodgson's style of writing, but I never thought I was going to be able to find a good collection because, as I said, I thought Nightshade Books only released that special 5-book set. It's in hardcover, very fancy, but the font is also very fancy, and my eyes just don't want to deal with that. Now, after I picked these up, I picked up the entire collection on ebook, so that will be how I consume them. But I was happy to find these. I really like Nightshade Books. I think Nightshade Books is one of the best publishers of the last 30 years. Like, they technically went out of business in 2013 or whatever and got bought by one of the bigger publishers, but they still put stuff out, and they have put out some of the best stuff in science fiction and fantasy. I think I'm going to make a video dedicated to Nightshade Books, just showing off all the stuff they've put out over the years. There's like Hammer Slammers by David Drake, all of Glenn Cook's books that aren't the Platt Company, basically, they republished. And so that was an excellent resource for me kind of building up my collection. And they republished them in good, like, trade paperback and hardcover editions of the Dread Empire, which didn't exist until Nightshade Books did it. I think that company did a really important service for science fiction and fantasy fans out there, and nobody ever talks about Nightshade Books. So I'm going to do it. This next one, I couldn't resist it. I've been on basically a book buying freeze for, I don't know, like a month and a half now, 2 months. And the only time I break that is if a book is literally $1, or if I find something I just can't pass up and it's still reasonably priced. I'm not going to spend any ludicrous amounts of money, but I picked up Robert Jordan writing as Reagan O'Neill, The Fallon Blood. This is his historical romance series that he wrote starting in 1980. I'll post a picture of the cover because it's actually a really good one from Darrell K. Sweet. I love his covers, except for his last Wheel of Time one. we don't talk about that one. So this series follows an Irishman who is getting himself a better life. He started from nothing and built himself up, and then he accidentally kills an Englishman, and the punishment for that at the time in the early 1700s is death. So he flees Ireland and goes to South Carolina as an indentured servant, falls in love with the daughter of the person he's indentured to, and then I don't know the rest because that's kind of the little description on the dust jacket, and I don't want to dig any further until I actually read the books. But it seems really interesting, and I've heard good and bad things. If you look on Goodreads, it's only got like a 3.5 or a 3.6. Normally, I don't care about the reviews on Goodreads or the rating because one of my favorite books of all time isn't rated very well in spite of it winning a Pulitzer. So what do the scrubs on Goodreads know about reading anyways? I was reading the reviews, and at least half of them that give it bad ratings are like, I am the biggest Wheel of Time fan in the world. This isn't the Wheel of Time. I don't like it. It's like, duh, idiot. It was written a decade before the first Wheel of Time book, and it's a historical romance novel. What did you expect? Nynaeve to show up and start tugging on her braid or something? So I'm going to go into it without any preconceived notions. I just know that it's probably just an okay written historical romance. I want to see how much of Robert Jordan's style from the Wheel of Time was there in these early books, because I've read his Conan stuff. Well, I've tried to read his Conan stuff, like 3 different ones, and they're not very good. And I just wasn't going to pass up a cool hardcover edition. This is a first printing of this edition, which was the first time it was in hardcover, when they decided to use his Wheel of Time popularity to try to sell books that he had written beforehand, which, a quick aside, they put these back out in hardcovers, but for some reason, Warrior of the Altai didn't get printed until after he died. I mean, Warrior of the Altai was just sitting there. He wrote it in like 1983 or something. And if they were really wanting to get some more money out of his popularity, why didn't they put out his other fantasy work? Maybe they didn't want to confuse people who thought it would be from the Wheel of Time, but it's written in first person. The world is completely different. There's like lasers and teleportation and all sorts of crazy stuff in there. So I still don't understand why it didn't get published until like 18 or whenever it was. I can't remember now. That's a good book, by the way. But yeah, this is a digression. So let's move on. Fallon Blood, probably try to read it this year. The main reason I picked it up was because I have everything he's ever published in hardcover except for the Fallon stuff. And so now I have 1 out of 3. So we're whittling it away. Got 2 more books, and I think I own everything he's ever had published in hardcover except for The Dragon Reborn. Crap, forgot about that. I need that in hardcover. I have a first edition trade paperback. Fun fact, that happened at the beginning of Wheel of Time's publishing. They simultaneously released the trade and the hardcover, so you can get a first edition trade paperback. They're not very durable. I don't suggest picking one up. And now for something completely different, I picked up A Dance with Dragons in mass market paperback. This will not focus. Let's move it by my face. There we go. A Dance with Dragons, mass market paperback. I picked this up in this edition because I own the first 4 in mass market paperback. I read the series in mass market paperback back in the day, and I just feel like it's appropriate. And this is a really good one. It's nice and floppy, really good pages. We'll see. I haven't read A Dance with Dragons because I was frustrated with 3 or 4 years of gaslighting before it finally came out. Then I was just kind of over it. And honestly, I like reading his stuff outside of A Song of Ice and Fire as much or more than A Song of Ice and Fire. Fever Dream, one of the best vampire books ever written. I like his short fiction, and I especially like everything he's written in Wild Cards. So this is not a let's cry about George R. R. Martin not finishing Song of Ice and Fire. This is more of a I'm happy I finally picked up a cool copy of A Dance with Dragons, and man, do I wish there was a different audiobook narrator for the series, because I probably would have read the series 2 or 3 times at this point. But anyways, we don't have that for some reason, even though there's like 3 versions of Harry Potter now, and it doesn't make sense. You know what else doesn't make sense? Why someone didn't open this copy of Manifest Destiny and Empire, American Antebellum Expansion. This is a collection of essays about American Antebellum Expansion. This feeds right into my love of the Gilded Age, but in a roundabout way, because this is the expansion into the West before the Civil War, which doesn't sound like it makes sense when it comes to my enjoyment of everything post-Reconstruction, which is about 1877. But you gotta have a foundation of knowledge on what led to all the westward expansion in the second half of the 19th century. And this seems like it will be a good collection to read to expand my knowledge. Also, it's a very small book, and I enjoy academic essays that involve the historical topics that I like to follow. So this will be good. Also, like I said, it's real short. I picked it up for $1 and it's never been opened. It's from Texas A&M University Press, and we'll see how it goes. I'll probably read it real quick and it'll end up in a wrap up. These next 4 books I picked up for very cheap as well, which is why I got them. And the majority of the reason I picked them up is the covers. And just because I own the first trilogy, and why not get the next 4? I have heard that this is kind of where the series really starts to take off. I don't know. Haven't read any of them, but one of them is on my 40 before 40. And what I'm talking about is the Heritage of Shannara trilogy. Look at that. The Scions of Shannara, the Druid of Shannara, the Elf Queen of Shannara, and the Talisman of Shannara. Now, great thing. These are all first edition, first printings, which is super cool. I love the art on them. I have always wanted to read the Shannara series. I have the first 3. I have like the first one in a very worn out, very old book club edition hardcover. I have book 2 as a very ratty paperback, and then book 3 is a first edition, first printing hardcover. So my collection's pretty cool. And the Sword of Shannara is on my 40 before 40. I'm going to probably tackle it this year. And if I like it, I'm going to move on to the rest. I know that I need to read at least the second book in the first trilogy to really give the series a chance, because I've heard that the first book is so derivative, but maybe I'm going to like them. I like some pretty terrible fantasy. So who knows? This next book was a gift from Steve Donahue. Thank you, Steve. I really enjoyed reading this. I had brought up to Steve when I was chatting with him that I really enjoyed a book review of his that he wrote. If I can remember to, I will post a link in the comments. And his review was about Summer of Fire and Blood, The German Peasants' War by Lyndall Roper. Now, I talked about this book last month. I finished it last month. And yeah, Steve was kind enough to send me the hardcover copy with this fantastic cover. I had a really interesting time reading it. Like I said in my reviews, it was probably a little too dense for me. I was either not educated enough in the history of that time and or not German enough to understand a lot of the things that were going on in it. And hopefully I can rectify that by getting a little more knowledge about that time. My problem is most of the German reading I like is the 30 Years' War and the buildup and industrialization of Germany up until about the end of World War I. Beyond that, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. So maybe I'll build a better foundation and read that book again. So these last 2 I picked up are interesting. One of them, my wife and I picked up because we thought my daughter would enjoy it. And also, my wife and I wanted to read it, and we picked up Case Closed by Gosho Aoyama, Volume 1. Look at that. He's so cute. A little detective. And what's interesting is that the detective in the story, so his real name is Jimmy Kudo, and he's a high school student, and he's a detective. He solves cases that the cops can't figure out. Well, someone slips him a mysterious chemical that turns him back into a kid. And as a kid, he goes by the pseudonym Conan Edogawa, which is a very cool homage to like 2 of the greatest detective story writers of all time, Edogawa Rampo and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I thought that was really cool, and that honestly is what sold me on picking this up. Plus it was like $3, so couldn't say no to that. Now this last one, this is probably the coolest book out of everything I got for a few reasons. 1, I didn't know it existed in this format, and 2, it's just so beautiful. It's in amazing shape. I picked up Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones in this hardcover edition that I'd never seen before. It's so cool. I've seen paperbacks, and this one is a reinforced trade edition. It's a ex-library copy, so I think that is one of the things that makes it special. Is I don't even know how many of these were made. Green Willow Books, New York. This is a first edition, like 7th printing, but yeah, I had never seen this before. I couldn't believe that it even existed. It looks so cool. I picked this up for free, basically, because I sold a bunch of books. So I did 2 things. So I had a very rare book, and I sold it to Recycled Books, and they gave me exactly what I wanted for it. So I was happy. They were happy. They leveled with me, and they're like, hey, look, we're going to sell this for 2 or 3 times what we're paying you, but probably going to take a few months. And I said, yep, I know. That's fine. And he's like, this is the nicest version of this I've ever seen. And so I ended up using that to help out this channel. I picked up the Rode microphone set so that I can kind of do audio in other places, use it to be a little more mobile. And I picked up another thing, a gimbal for my phone, because I want to do more for the channel. But while I was there, I was like, well, I'm not going to use all of this money for that stuff. So we had 2 separate piles. We had the special book that I was selling to pay for upgrades for this channel. And then we had the other pile that was just fun money. And so I ended up using almost all of it to pick up this book because I'd never seen it before, and it's in amazing shape. And what's really cool is they bought everything I offered them, and Recycle Books is very picky. So I'm very proud that I have like a 95% buy rate or something crazy through them, but that's yet another digression that doesn't really matter. That's my book haul. I am super happy with everything I picked up. I think the Terry Brooks collection is just really cool. They look great, and they're going to look really good on the shelf when I have room for them, because holy crap, I still have no space. That's the hidden reason why I'm buying less books, is I have nowhere to put them. I have shelves in every room. I have 500 books, 600 books in my living room, another 500 or 600 books in my bedroom, and then another, if we're including game books from like tabletop RPGs and stuff, I have another few hundred in my hallway. Your boy is out of room, can't be spending money. And I've transitioned mostly to ebooks. So when I do book hauls on here, from here on out, they're either going to be like crazy deals I couldn't pass up, where it was like 50 cents or $1 a book, and I just grabbed a bunch of stuff, or they're going to be a little more few and far between, and they're going to be really nice hauls. I hope you liked this one. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, or if you own any of these cool editions like that Howl's Moving Castle. Thanks for watching, and with that, I'll see you next time.